Hello everyone, I just wanted to jump in before we press play on the latest episode of Aiden Meets Interesting People, just to let you know that we haven't gone anywhere. It has been a while since we've put out an episode. I've been putting a lot of my efforts outside of my normal work in getting Dirty Angel Comedy back up and running after our COVID shutdowns. And thankfully that's going really well. If you haven't been to Dirty Angel Comedy in the last couple of months or you've been missing it in the last couple of years, get across there and have a look. But that's all sort of settling down now, so I'm going to be putting much more effort into Aiden Meets Interesting People. So I've got a great guest for you today, 30-year radio veteran. But also, if you're new to the podcast and you haven't heard or seen any of the other ones, jump back into the back catalogue. There's 6 or 7 really great interviews there that you can catch up on while I'm churning out the newest of the new. So thanks for sticking around. Aiden Meets Interesting People is still on, and we'll hopefully get episodes out to you as regularly as we can. Sit back and enjoy this chat with a good friend, radio veteran Jon Vertigan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for jumping back into Aiden Meets Interesting People. I know I just said at the start there that has been a while, but it's we're back and we've got a fire to sit beside, and I've got one of my good friends here, Jon Vertigan.
Aiden.
Hello.
Thank you for having me on the show, mate. I'm Aiden Meets Interesting People.
Yes.
It's a bit of pressure here to be interesting.
You better up the ante on all your answers.
Although, is it all in the inflection on interesting?
I think you just add lies in. Tell lies like, oh yeah, and then this car crashed, and then I saved all the people, and
I was thinking it's all about the inflection on interesting, because you can meet a bloke that's he's an interesting fella,
right?
And then and that he's pretty interesting. So I'm just not sure what sort of inflection you were using when you decided to get me on. But no, thank you. No, I'm honoured and chuffed.
Aiden meets weird people. Right, and radio. I hope people will know you from radio. 30 years. Was this year 30 years in radio?
Yeah, just celebrated 30 years in radio. Don't know where that went, but when I think back to 1992, I was just 18 years old, and it does seem like an absolute lifetime ago. But yeah, started in Swan Hill in 1992, a couple of years there, and then I've sort of been around Victoria and spent a year in Sydney, and then back to Victoria.
Right. I like to, the people who watch the show will know, I like to do a bit of research on here. So I did some research on Jon Vertigan. It actually says here you started hosting in 1955. But you don't look a day over 50, mate. You're doing well for someone who's in their mid-80s.
The old followed my father followed his footsteps into the radio industry.
Right. Explain that joke for people who got no idea what I'm on about.
So my dad was in radio for 53 years.
Yes.
And he is also Jon Vertigan, just to add to the confusion. Well, I'm actually Jonathan, so I'm not exactly John. I'm Jonathan. So, he was... Well, I guess most well known for, he was a DJ back in the 60s on 3UZ with Don Lunn and Alan Lappin, and when 3UZ was all the go in the 60s, and then they turned into a racing station later down the track, and he's probably most well known for racing coordinating at the height of his career. So he would sit in the studio and say, numbers official at Doonburn for 7, 9 and 10. They're moving in at Caulfield. And the quaddy approximates at Donald. The numbers you need are blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, he was in charge of doing all of the buttons and the crossing to the various race courses. So, and a very complex and intense job that he did with aplomb.
Yes, I can imagine the difficulty of doing that back in the 50s and the 60s of pulling all that together using what we would consider now to be fairly archaic sort of means.
Well, that's right.
Of radio and pulling phone lines together, etc., etc.
And I guess the whole game's changed now too, because if you want to listen to a race, you don't necessarily... Well, back then you would tune into the radio because it was the only way, but now you pick up your phone and any betting app, you can watch any race anywhere in the world, really.
I did when I was researching, and your dad popped up, and he was quite famous for switching between the moon landing and the Kilmore races.
Yes.
And did you have a quote that said something, that's enough of the moon landing, they're jumping in Kilmore?
Yeah, look, he tells the story better than what I would, but yeah, there were a number of race meetings on that afternoon, and of course the historic landing on the moon, and they were the news grab of Neil Armstrong on the moon, and then, as you say, the Kilmore Trots were approaching, and he quite famously said, "We'll have to leave the moon there because they're ready to jump at Kilmore."
Have to leave the moon there. Yeah, man, those betting agencies, they had a stranglehold on things even.
That's even back then.
They
exactly.
couldn't even interrupt the betting with the news of the moon landing.
Exactly.
All right, we'll leave you down there. But you did follow in his footsteps. Obviously, radio was a thing that you grew up with. You're listening to your dad, watching your dad record, I guess, when on take your son to work day, etc., or were you just there all the time anyway?
No, that's exactly right. I wasn't there all the time, but I would often go to work and watch Dad and do some work experience later on in high school years. But yeah, and I guess just growing up with radio in the house, there would be a radio on one station in the kitchen, and you'd go to the living room and there's a radio on another radio station, and then in the bedroom it's on another station. So I guess it was drip fed to me from a very early age, and I saw the fun that Dad was having, and I thought, I think I really want to be a part of this.
Wouldn't mind it.
And clearly a face for radio, so that was the road that I went down.
If you had $1 for every time someone said to you, "You've got a great face for radio," what are we buying? Are we talking mansions, Lamborghinis?
Oh, I'd already probably be $20 up just today. It does pop up a bit, and you learn to just say, that's very funny. Yeah, that's genius. Yeah, it's a bit like when I introduced my wife, and you get the old, he's batting above your average there.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we're that. Face for radio, batting above the average. All good, mate.
Survive. Well, you don't. I mean, actually, nowadays, I guess, if you look at the way that COVID's changed the way we take in media, and radio's been really good. I think they've jumped on board with the social media of it and the video aspect. So similar to what we're doing today with recording, that. You can't just get away with having an ugly mug in radio anymore. You've got to be handsome as well.
There's cameras everywhere. It's quite frightening, really.
Because you've got to look good for the social media snippets to get people into the listening.
You do. Once upon a time, radio was very candid, and you could. Your listeners didn't know. I remember when I grew up listening to the radio, you never knew what the announcers looked like.
No.
And I used to ring up and win prizes from radio stations.
Yes.
This is back when I was 15, 16 years old. I'd ring up Melbourne radio stations and win prizes, and I'd catch the train in from Glen Waverley into the city, and the only time you would see the announcers when you were at the radio station, and you might get a glimpse of them behind the window.
Yes, through the window.
That's what he looks like.
Yeah.
But these days, it's so accessible, isn't it? You just jump onto the website and you can see them, and you got live cameras. But back then, there was just a certain mystique about radio because it was only an audio medium. But you're right. These days, it's all very different.
Oh, very visual as well.
Multi-platform, we say.
Multi-platform. So 30 years you've spent in radio on various AM, FM stations. Why do we need AM and FM? What's the difference?
Wow.
This is tech talk now.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting
the tech
talk.
Yeah. I did send you questions. I don't send you all the questions.
No, that's fair. Look, AM, FM, it's all government related. So a certain amount of licenses allotted to each service area, a number of those on FM and a number of those on AM. Obviously, AM's been around a lot longer than FM. Our first FM frequencies in Australia were in 1980. And
so
now
you were on recording before FM was around, and then you were in the lunchroom or something and they started talking about this new wave of airwaves that were coming called FM.
FM, and now there's DAB+. I'm not sure if you know too much about DAB+, but all AM and FM stations, commercial licenses, have in metropolitan areas have DAB+ frequencies allotted to them as well. Right. So that's a different spectrum. Digital radio. Once again, not being a technical boffin, but it allows the AM stations to sound just as good as the FM stations. So if you're in Melbourne, you can listen to 3MP or Magic 1278 or 3AW or Fox FM or Smooth. They're all on a level playing field in regards to sound quality. Yeah.
It's funny, I hadn't thought about this for quite a while, but digital radio... my car, when I bought my car, it was a brand new car, and I was really excited about it because I would be able to listen to digital radio.
Yeah.
So listen to those sort of Melbourne stations and stuff.
Doesn't get down to Warrnambool.
Well, I picked up the car in Geelong and I put it on SEN radio, and I reckon I got about 5 kilometres out of Geelong and it just stopped.
Yeah.
I had to go home and Google it, and I'm like, it doesn't work in the country.
Not much good in the country. Yeah.
Anyway,
but it is very good in the city.
Yes, no doubt. All right. I'll let you off the tech talk. It's not Dr.
No,
Carl's.
I think about look.
It's not a Dr.
I
Carl
hope I
podcast.
bluffed my way through that because really I've got no idea.
AM, FM. Yeah.
Cliff Richard saying AM, FM. I feel so excited now. You're a bit young to remember.
I don't know
Cliff
that.
Richard, Wired for Sound.
Great
song.
It's a Cliff Richard song.
Great song. Yeah.
I don't know that. Right. So you have been. You just said your first radio gig was up there in Swan Hill.
Swan Hill, yes.
On what?
Swan Vegas, we called it.
Swan Vegas. Yeah, for obvious reasons. Such a
3SH. 1332 3SH. So with the Ace Radio Network.
Yeah.
Forgive my.
Oh, yes.
Is that my neighbour doing a bit of whippersnipping?
Sounds more like an angle grinder.
Yeah, it might be an angle
I'm glad
grinder.
your neighbour's done that. That's perfect
Oh,
timing.
no, good on him.
Yeah.
A couple of years there, then went to 3WM Horsham for a couple of years, then to 3SR Shepparton for a couple of years.
Yeah. Is this all breakfast shows?
No. Started doing breakfast in Horsham.
Yes.
And then went to Shepparton to do Drive, I think it was, and then came to Warrnambool in 1998 for 6 months. Met my wife here, who's a receptionist at the radio station.
Right.
And we went to Gippsland through Ace Radio, where we wanted to kick off a new breakfast show on 3TR. And so I went down there and took Kelly with me and met Julie, who was my co-host on 3TR Breakfast, and did that for 3 years.
TR Terralgan?
TR Terralgan.
Yeah.
I think the TR actually stands for Trafalgar, but the radio station was based in Terralgan.
Righto.
And then started doing some while I was in Terralgan. It's only an hour and a half from Melbourne. And a mate of mine, Dean Pickering, was program director at Mix 101.1 in Melbourne. Yeah. And I said, it's my goal to get to Melbourne. I'd love to, maybe do a weekend shift on Mix. And he said, yeah, come down and do some. So I started doing that. That led to a full-time role. So I was Monday to Friday, 9 till 1, I think it was, and music director at Mix 101.1. Did that for a year, went to Sydney for a year as national music director. And then in around 2005, went to Warrnambool. A job came up in Warrnambool. We were missing Victoria a fair bit.
Yes.
Being in the role I was in Sydney, it wasn't floating my boat greatly. So I tried to get transferred back to Melbourne.
Wasn't Kyle Sanderlands' chair that you were filling?
Although he same building.
Yes.
That he broadcasts from now. And got back to Warrnambool and landed back there in about 2005.
Yeah, at 3YB.
At 3YB, yeah.
Yes.
Did the network Brekkie show there, which was across all of the regional Ace Radio markets across Victoria and southern New South Wales. And then Ace Radio went into Metropolitan and purchased 3MP in Melbourne, going back about 2 years. And my CEO said to me at the time, Mark Taylor, who's been my boss ever since I really started with Ace Radio, said, I want you to do breakfast. And I said, yeah, but I live in Warrnambool. And he said, yeah, but, COVID and we could get you on and, you can do breakfast from Warrnambool. And then when COVID lifts, you can go in between Melbourne and Warrnambool. And so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And, and at the time I said, I don't want to do it by myself though. And he said, well, who do you want to be on air with? And I said, well, if I'm going to be doing it from Warrnambool, what about Julie, who I was doing breakfast with in Gippsland? And he said, yeah, great idea, because he was always a fan of Julie and I on air together. So, that's how we do it. She'll be home in Gippsland when I'm home in Warrnambool, and quite often every week or two we'll do it from our Melbourne studio.
Oh, you shoot down there and do
one or two,
just get get the creative juices flowing again, and get the
nothing beats the being in the same room as your co-host.
Yeah,
but we kind of go okay when we're doing it the way we do it.
So people who are, I mean, some people would listen to 3MP hanging around here because they know you from the Morning Rush and 3YB and whatever, and have followed you probably to 3MP. Have you ever got people that have done that? Just as an aside?
No, not really.
No? All right.
No, I do.
No,
and look, online listening is pretty big because, and we promote that very heavily on 3MP because, we do broadcast on 1377 AM, but we're always on the air banging on about how we've got the 3MP app.
Yes.
And you can listen to us in crystal clear stereo doing that. We've got DAB+.
Yes.
3mp.com.au. So I actually do have listeners from around regional Victoria as well. And quite often they'll ring up because we do a quiz every morning. They go, g'day, John. You remember me? I was on radio categories a couple of times.
Yeah, right.
Oh, right.
At 3YB.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That's
that's
good.
funny. They recognise your name and
which is really nice.
Follow it around.
Yeah.
We're out in your sort of outdoor area now with the fire because it's not nicer than your office. But
you haven't done an Aiden Meets Interesting People from in front of a fire.
In front of a fire. No, I've done them in garages and sheep shearing sheds. I've done one in there.
Yeah. And a pole studio.
And the pole studio. I did one in.
Yeah.
I've never done one by the fire. This is
with the ambience of the angle grinder.
I was thinking about it, but I think it's bench grinder. I think he's.
Oh, is it?
Sharpening knives
I don't know my power tools, mate.
No. Let's take you back to Swan Hill. So your first couple of weeks, or your first couple of months at Swan Hill.
Yeah.
Can you remember what the studio looked like and what the desk and the buttons and all that sort of stuff looked like? And
vividly.
Yeah. How much has it changed since those days?
Yeah, well, when I first started...
Were we doing cassettes, CDs, records?
We had records.
Yes.
So we would play 7-inch record singles with 2 turntables. CDs, we'd have 2 CD players. And what were known as carts.
Okay.
Cart is kind of like a cassette, which was an endless loop of tape. So you would have all of your commercials on cart and you would load that into a machine, hit start, and it would play the ad or the song. And then it'd queue itself back up. You'd take it out and put it back in the rack ready for it the next time that you play it.
I see.
So it was all very hands-on. These days we're obviously, there's a lot more automation through the computer system, but back then it was all analog. So you were playing records, CDs, and carts, and putting it all together. So a 4-hour shift you'd be sitting in the studio pressing all of the buttons.
Yeah. Can you remember the first song you played when you were on radio? And this was one of the questions I did pre-send you, so I need you to.
Yeah,
you to have an answer.
It was "You Can Leave Your Hat On" by Joe Cocker.
Yes.
And
your choice or programmer's choice?
No, it was programmed for me.
Yeah.
And I kept all of my gear on.
Yeah, did you?
I wasn't tempted because I was absolutely shitting myself.
Yes.
It was the most frightening thing that I've ever done. I still remember the nerves. But with those nerves came a great buzz as well.
That it all works.
All works. And that buzz still have today when you put the mic on. So that's, I guess, the reason a lot of radio presenters do what they do. It's because it's fun and you do get that buzz from it.
Yeah. So back in those Swan Hill days again, and after that, was radio like 100% live back then? Because one of the things it would have been with you and Marie when I first came into the 3YB studios.
What did we do?
No. That was me. It was just me bumming free advertising for Dirty Angel Comedy off your radio show.
Yeah.
But I literally still to that particular day thought that radio was 100% live. And when you're talking, it comes on. And when the DJ puts a song on, everyone in the studio just sits back and goes like, 3.5 minutes of take a breath, have a drink, do whatever. Right, now we're back.
Were we doing a bit of pre-recorded stuff then?
Yeah.
Right,
So that was when it was like, okay, So the song's going to be, Leave Your Hat On by Joe Cocker.
Yeah.
We'll come back out of that. It'll be 8:26, and then you'd go, righto, it's 8:26 here on 3YB. We've got Aidan Nichols and him, but it's not 8:26. It was 7:30.
Yeah, right. You were recording in advance because I think
and
we might have,
that threw me a bit.
We might have done that because you'd come in and we didn't want you to wait round till 8:26, so
possible.
we probably just recorded it because it was easy to do.
Yes.
But yeah, no, back then it was all live.
100% live.
Yeah.
Right. Do you remember when those sort of technological changes? I think for me, it's like we'd have to relearn how to do your job again in some aspects of. So when you're doing radio and it's like, right, we're doing everything's on records and CDs and whatever, and then someone comes in one day and goes, clear the desk. All the songs here are on this computer.
Here's the DJ 2000.
Just click it. Is that what it was?
Yeah, well, that was its nickname, I think. Yeah. And that was probably only a couple of years into my career when we were first introduced to automation software.
Yeah.
And it started with just the commercials and the image work, like the sweepers and the recordings being on that software, but we'd still play the music separately from CDs and records, and then a year or two down the track, the music was put onto the automation software as well. But we still kept the record players and the CD players and cart machines in the studio,
like someone just
just in case the software broke down, which it regularly did.
Yeah. Because now you can re-record something. Like if you get halfway through a little intro and you're like, oh, I balls that up, or I didn't sound very enthusiastic or whatever, you can just hit delete, go back, re-record, wait till 8:26, hit the button, and it's all good. But
try not to though. Try and make it as authentic as it would have been if it were a live break. I mean, you can voice track a shift now. If you're on from midday until 6, you can jump in and go into the log, and you can hear the song that was on before your voice track. You can hear that fade.
Yeah.
You do your voice track, start the next song, talk over the intro of the song as though it's going out live. So when I'm doing it, I like to try and get it first take, because if you are on the radio live, you've only got one opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So unless you completely stuff it up, and the odd or or glitch or mispronunciations would have happened if you were live. So sometimes you can overthink things, and there's a bit of perfectionism that comes in. I didn't get that 100% right, so I'm going to go and have another go at it. It can take you 4.5 hours to record a 4-hour shift, which is kind of counterproductive.
That's actually.
I was probably exaggerating a little bit there. Maybe not 4.5 hours.
Right. So have you got a few like live radio faux pas that you've made? Some things you just like even now you go like, oh God, I can't remember I said that thing in 1989.
Oh, look, there's probably been a number of them. I do recall one when I was in Horsham, and copywriter Chris Creasy knew that I didn't pre-read my live reads.
Right.
I'd just pull it out of the folder. And, Aidan Nicholson Joinery, he's a good bloke, Aidan. Go and see him for all of your joinery needs. So he knew that I was just reading it for the first time.
Right.
One particular lingerie store had an ad for Mother's Day, and he had completely butchered the script. And I almost read what he'd typed live on air.
Right.
But I realised that I was being stitched up at the time. And
so your eyes are...
my eyes were darting
ahead.
a couple of lines ahead, and I'm going, well, Sheer Illusions install, and then I got the giggles. And eventually aborted and went into the next ad, but I'll never forget that, and neither will he.
Right.
I can't tell you what he wrote.
I was going to say, you're not going to tell me what it was? No.
No, it was...
You'll both go down.
Can I? I don't think I can.
You don't have to.
No.
Well, you can tell me now and then ring me tomorrow and go, actually, can you delete
Take that out?
Wouldn't be the first time.
He said, get Mum a slinky negligee that shows off her pink erect nipples. And so I'm ready. Get Mum a slinky negligee that shows... So anyway, Sheer Illusions install, the place to go for Mother's Day, and the giggles started. And horrible man.
What a terrible idea buying a slinky negligee for your mum is,
I know. And look, yeah, thinking about it afterwards, it was wrong on so many
thing,
levels. So wrong. You get along well with Chris.
Yeah, right.
You get him down for Dirty Angel comedy.
Yeah, is he still up there making?
No, he's not.
DJs
No, he's not.
difficult?
He's not working at the station anymore.
Right.
Not due to that.
He works at the lingerie store now. Him and his mum co-own it.
Yeah,
She does the modelling. He does the voice ads.
Possibly.
My mum looks great in this slinky.
Maybe that's where he's ended up. But many a faux pas, and I guess you make them and you move on. That's the beauty of radio.
Yes.
Once it's gone. It's like a seat on an aeroplane, really. Once it's gone, once the ship has sailed, it's gone forever, and you always move on to your next show.
And we'll talk about your. Was the Morning Rush your biggest show? Most people who are from this from Warrnambool area, who are probably the vast majority of people watching this podcast, will know Jon and Maria and Jon and Kate from the Morning Rush.
Yep.
Was that your biggest show? Was that the most loved or for whatever reason?
Yeah, audience-wise, it wasn't. And we sort of built that up. So 3YB and Coast FM were both doing local breakfast programs, like only going out on 3YB and only going out on Coast FM. When I first came to Warrnambool, I was on Coast FM breakfast, and then I think it might have been about 12 months in that I was moved to 3YB because the management had an idea that we might network a breakfast show and run it on Horsham as well.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then we added... What did we add to it? Oh, Gippsland, Gold 1242 in Gippsland. Because that was the station that I was on when I was in Gippsland.
So you got the northwest of Victoria.
Yeah, that's right. So we were on three
east.
stations for a while, and then we added 3CS in Colac, and then 3SH in Swan Hill, and then all of a sudden 3NE Wangaratta and 2QN in Deniliquin on board.
Yeah.
So it's on.
Was that on the back of the popularity of the show, or is it?
Oh yeah. Look, I think it was a good show, and that's testament to, as you mentioned, a number of co-hosts throughout the years that were really good. Maria was fantastic, as was Kate, so it wasn't just me; it was the staff that I worked with on the show, and it got a following with the regular, we call them benchmark segments. So a segment that is on every morning at a certain time, a staple. Peter Ford doing entertainment news at 7:15 in the morning, and Tony Leonard talking sport before the 7:30 and 8:30 news, and radio categories, the game that we'd play at 8 o'clock. So and I think it became familiar for people, and as we added radio stations, of course, added audience, and it would create new callers to the program as well. And we'd often go to the phones and for phone topics and what have you, and speak with so many people. And it's a great time to be on the radio breakfast time. It really is, because you've got people listening, and for them to actually take time out of their routine to phone the show, it means a great deal. It's good.
Yeah. Do you get an idea of how many people are listening?
Yeah. We do surveys, and
no one asked me.
Regionally well, that's the thing, isn't it? You never get asked. You hear about all of these surveys and this show rates number one.
I did actually heard recently with probably digital radio's one, and now that all TV's digital, is they don't need to do the survey anymore because your TV's telling them who's watching it.
Yeah, my dad has a monitor on his TV, so
does he?
He participates in the TV ratings.
Right.
So
maybe they still do
the likes of Doc Martin and Sky News go right up on his TV.
Great.
He tries not to watch the ABC,
right?
Because he doesn't want doesn't want their ratings to go up,
right? So but you do get some idea of of your
absolutely.
Listeners.
Regionally, not so often. It's every 3 years regionally.
Okay.
But in the city, there's 8 surveys a year.
Yeah.
So we get our ratings every 6 weeks or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that like something you
Hate
dread?
it. Yeah, it's dreadful. It's dreadful.
So you can see the date coming. The
Yeah.
manager's like, we've got a meeting at 8 a.m.
That's right. And for our little
on in.
stations that we've really only just launched,
Yes.
it's hard. It really is difficult to get traction. So, but we're going all right. The likes of 3MP has over 100,000 listeners, which is really good.
Yeah.
Considering we started from a base of 0
Yes.
2 years ago.
This podcast has got about 7 listeners, so you're 100,000 ahead of me, just on average.
It's got more than that. No, it's a good podcast, and a lot of people listen to it. I know that for a fact. But we took over 3MP. When we took it over, it was SEN Track, which was the SEN side channel, which wasn't actually taking horse races. It's talking about horse races.
Talking about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's right. So
Did they can that?
They can that. Yeah, SEN
Right.
sold 3MP to Ace.
So half your listeners are people who were just waiting for you to start talking about horses.
Well,
I
I think for the first few weeks,
6 months later.
why aren't they doing the horse chat, the turf talk?
Yes.
So SEN sold 1377 to us, and we brought back the 3MP brand that it was in the 70s
How
and
much
80s.
does a radio station cost? Privy to those numbers?
Actually, not privy to
No?
what we paid for that. It's not cheap.
Is it like $50,000 or $5 million?
No, certainly it's closer to your second one.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume it depends on how good it is and blah,
Yeah,
blah,
well,
blah,
that's
and,
right. Yeah.
And what they're planning on doing with it. But so basically selling them the numbers, like the actual frequency band, right?
Pretty much.
Because you're not getting any
And then it's
listeners or
it's our choice what to do with that then.
Yeah.
To provide a format that is suitable enough to gain that audience, and then selling advertising to that base.
Of course. Jolly
Which is,
good.
yeah.
So you're a recipient of 15 ACRA awards. Is that an Australian Commercial Radio Awards?
Correct.
Well, I should
Correct.
actually look that up before I had a guess.
No,
Good
you've
work.
done well there.
Is that the Logies of radio? Is that what that is?
Oh, that is the Logies of radio.
And you got 15 of them.
Well, yes, I think it is 15, and you've done your research.
Oh,
and
well, I mean, it might be 16 by now.
No. 15 sounds right.
Sounds
yeah.
about
So
right.
look, they're good. It's
Is that the most of anyone in Australia ever?
no.
Oh.
No.
Damn it.
No, certainly not. But look, yeah,
Tom Elliott's
it's a good night. You submit your work. You don't know what
Yeah.
your work is like. Really, I never know. It gets judged by radio industry peers,
Yeah.
and then you find out on the night if you're a winner.
So what are the other 15 for similar things, or are they? Across, I know some of them are for the Phantom race.
The race
calls,
calls,
the comedy race calls.
yeah. There's a couple for that, and best networked program as well was a good one because not a lot of entries for that in country divisions.
Okay.
I'm trying to let the cat out of the bag here, but best network program might not get a heap of entries from country markets. So when we'd enter the Morning Rush from Warrnambool, it might only be up against 2 or 3 others.
Right. Of a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Right.
we won a couple there, which
Yeah.
was good. And so a couple of best station produced comedy segments.
Yeah.
I think won a few promo ones. Yeah, so
Best Slinky negligee ad.
best slinky negligee ad. There's one.
What's the best? What's the biggest one? What's like the that you've got that you guys have won? What's the one that you look back and go, that was like not a hard fought one, but that like we deserved that one because we did put on a really good segment or a good.
Yeah, look, that's a really good question. I don't look. I couldn't tell you what each one of them are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I know
Okay.
we won best on air team, and I'm pretty sure that was with Maria.
Okay.
And that's always a harder one to get.
That's
That's
a good one,
kind of
yeah.
like considered the Acra of Acras is the best on
Okay.
air team. That's the one that
Right.
Kyle and Jackie O win every
That's
year.
the gold logo.
Yeah. Well, it's silver like the rest of them, so it's
Right.
not. But yeah, so that was good.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
best. And that was what? Throughout Australia? Best on air?
But they break it into 3 divisions. So there's
Metro.
country,
Yeah.
there's provincial, and there's metropolitan.
Ah,
so
yes, yes, yes.
we fall fell under country.
Country.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, there's probably a lot more radio stations. Yeah, you're talking up through Queensland, Western Australia, all those.
Yeah. It's good. I don't like.
good.
I don't deal with praise very well though.
Right.
Yeah.
All
So
right. Well, suck eggs. You only
I was-
won 15, you loser.
That's better. That's better. That's brought me back down. Thank you.
Why didn't you win 20? Soft. Where are they? Are they at Ace Radio? I've got them all. Do you have any here?
No. I've got them here.
Just show me
There's
later.
There's one in my office studio.
Right.
And the rest are in a box in that garage there.
Yes. Yes. You obviously don't stand back and look
they're
at them.
there. They're fine. I know they're there.
Very good. Well, can you remember? Have you gone back to and looked at shows that you did when you were much younger, way back when, and thought, actually, that was a really good little segment there. We should just do that one again, even though it was like, you had done it back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I thought of this because I was doing some stand-up comedy the other day, and I did some stuff that was nearly the first stuff I ever wrote back in like 2013, 2014.
And you discovered and thought...
I did it again, and I just thought, it's nice to...
get another run.
Yeah, give it another little go. It's like dusting off an old car and give it another run. Did you do that?
And did you do it better this time around? How do you go? So how do you go when you go back? Do you and look at your old work,
Old comedy stuff? Yeah. Yeah.
your old comedy gear? Do you cringe or do you go? Oh, actually, that's all right.
Generally, if it's got to the point where I've done it on stage,
Yeah.
it's been through the ringer already, and it's been through the process.
It's a finely crafted.
Well, I wouldn't say finely tuned. It's generally the deadline was looming, and I had to plan something really quickly.
Yes.
By that stage, I'm generally happy with it, and I'm proud of it. I've definitely done some stuff on stage. I'm like, I'll never do that again. Like it wasn't ready to go, and I could come back to whatever. But yeah, I still like going back to some of the stuff that I did in my very first comedy gig ever, and I'll put that on stage. It was good stuff. It was good.
I listen to old audio of mine. It's not something I enjoy doing. I absolutely some of it is really horrific, and especially the early stuff.
Right.
Like I can probably only go back to, for instance, Julie and I last year on air did something where we flashed back 20 years ago, and I played some audio of Jon and Julie from 1999,
Right.
and then from 2020, and the 1999 stuff. I sounded like I had a pole shoved up my ass. I'm going, 1242, 3TR. Oh, mate.
Real classic radio.
Really, really bad. And it's not until like later in my career and when I have a listen back to, not that I do it very often at all, but if I stumble across some audio from the Morning Rush with Maria or Kate, I can actually go, that was pretty good. And
More, yeah.
yeah, recently... Julie and I, it was only a couple of weeks ago, it was the first real morning of winter. Oh, it was actually July 1, and it was freezing in Melbourne. We were broadcasting from our Melbourne studio, and I said a couple of years ago, Kate and I just did a bit where we played a sound effect of a fire for the whole morning.
Oh, right.
And we said, we've got the studio fire going, it's freezing, so just come and hang by the fire with us.
Yes.
And we'll tell some fire stories. So we did that for the whole morning. The sound effect of the fire crackling actually made you feel warm.
Right.
And we had callers saying, can you do that fire thing again tomorrow? That really made me feel warm this morning. And the same thing happened years ago when I did it on the Morning Rush. So I think with radio, we can sometimes forget that we need to utilise the whole theatre of the mind a little more by using audio the best we can.
That's interesting.
And sound effects is a really good way of doing that, especially if you've got a good one.
I'll put a fire crackling sound in here.
Yeah, well, here's a real fire.
People won't know until they get to this point in the podcast and go, that noise is fake.
We don't need a fire crackling sound effect here this afternoon, Aidan.
No, we've got the bench grinder.
That was an example of going back and finding something that was successful before and recycling it and using it again.
But generally...
We recycle a fair bit in radio, actually.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, people go and watch their favourite band and they go, play that song. Play that song I want you to play.
That's it.
It's my favourite song.
That's it.
You did mention very briefly. You did you used to ring up radio stations a lot and get prizes, and you did your podcast called "I Was a Teenage Prize Pig."
Correct.
With audio, funnily
Yes.
enough, of you ringing up radio stations and, as you say, annoying them.
Yep.
And until you were given prizes, and we're quite successful. Holidays, bits and pieces. The podcast. Have you got more stuff, or have you ran out of?
Oh no, I have got more stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, and you would be very well aware of this. The podcast business it's really time consuming.
Oh yeah.
And I found I did 6 episodes of I Was a Teenage Prize Pig, and because I had to, so the whole premise of it was I found a box of cassettes in my shed. And on those cassettes was audio of me ringing up radio stations and winning prizes from the radio.
Yes.
So I would play that audio on the podcast. Then I would track down the announcer that gave me the prize and 35 years down the track apologise to them for being a teenage prize pig and ringing them up all the time. And, so a lot of work goes into that. It's not only sourcing the guest, it's lining them up, and it's doing your prep on, as you have done with me here today, doing your prep on the interview. And I was finding that, it's for a hobby, it was taking a good 6 hours a week for me to do.
Yeah.
But I do have more audio, and it was fun. And a
Good.
lot of people have said it's actually pretty cool hearing it, because it's me. It's cringeworthy listening. There was this one, I think it was episode 2, a competition on 3XY, where the aim was you had to name as many albums as you can in 10 seconds.
Right.
Right? And the albums you name, you keep. So
Okay. Yes. Good. Yeah.
So I rang up, and Dave Ferguson was the announcer, who ironically now works for us at 3MP.
Yes, right.
And g'day Dave, Jonathan from Glen Waverley. Okay, Jonathan, you've got 10 seconds to name as many albums as you can. So I'm going, tippity, push, push. He goes, hang on, John. You're going too fast, mate. We can't understand a word you're saying. So you're going to have to slow down and start again. And so that's all on the
Yes, I do remember
podcast.
that,
And I get Dave on and apologise to him. But, yeah.
I mean, some of them, obviously, no memory of you whatsoever. But it's some of them. I mean, some of them it's probably you're mates with them now, right? So you know
absolutely.
these guys.
It was really nice to speak with them, the likes of Kevin Hillier, who was a legend in Melbourne radio, John Peters, who was the #1 night announcer on Eon FM and Triple M. Everyone used to listen to him. So to speak with my idols from 30 years ago was really good. And what the best part was, when I finished the interview with them, this is 6 months ago, they said, I remember Kevin Hillier said, mate, thank you, that was so good. That was really good. And John said the same, and Dave as well. So, it was very enjoyable for me to hear that from them.
Right. So when you get a few more bit of spare time, you might pump out a couple more episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teenage Prize Pig.
I'll never say never. There might be. That's the thing with podcasts, isn't it? There's no rules.
No, that's right. That's right.
Season 2 can come out whenever.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, another little the podcast I've done occasionally on and off with Donna Reed, which is like comedy ones here and there, and they took so much to put together. Like, we just overstretched ourselves with the editing process of the whole lot, way too much. And so we stopped doing it. And then she said to me, oh, are we starting again? I said, well, we can start again whenever we want. And we'll just say this one's season 2.
Yeah.
And we'll do 1 episode, and then we'll wait 6 months and do season 3. No one says seasons have to have multiple episodes.
There are no rules, and it can take on a different form, because I might not have much more audio of me winning stuff, but I've certainly got audio of me just ringing up, requesting songs, and putting on stupid voices. There was a program on 3AW back in the late 80s called Sexually Speaking.
Right.
11 o'clock on a Saturday night, where the host would open up the lines for your sexual problems.
Right.
And me and a group of mates used to ring up and just make shit up. Yeah, I know, I've got an erection problem, and you don't sound old enough to have an erection problem. Then you start laughing and hang up. So there's audio like that, which is just, it's like embarrassing, but I think it probably deserves to.
Yeah, it deserves to see the light.
Yeah,
of day.
I think so.
Yeah, dust off the cassettes.
Yes.
podcasting, I guess, is one of those mediums that, like it's grown exponentially, and COVID's clearly helped that. But radio seems to have worked alongside it and have sort of even still thrived in the environment where some people might have thought podcasting would just kill radio because you can just do it yourself and you don't need to be networked out. You do your own networking, and I can record. Say if I wanted to I'm going to run Aidan Nicholson's breakfast show, and then I don't have to go to meetings, or I don't have to worry about what's happening in the lunch run or the drive run or the.
You don't have to do it at breakfast hours as
no,
well.
you don't have to do it at breakfast hours. You have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, you can do
100%.
it whenever you want.
Yes, but they've sort of coexisted fairly well.
Yeah, and you're right. It's growing at a rapid rate of knots. It really is. And yeah, the relationship with radio and podcasting, we have embraced it, and we use a lot of our on-air content and repackage that for podcast form.
Yeah.
So for the Could Have Been champions who have been broadcasting for 42 years, they came across to 3MP this year, and we do a podcast of the weekly show, and a lot of they're on air live 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon.
Yes.
And traditionally they've been on the ABC Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
So a lot of the diehard ABC listeners refuse to listen to it live, but they'll press play on the podcast.
Yes.
At
On
10
the
o'clock Saturday morning,
yes.
because that's the way they've
That's
always
when
done
I
it.
sit down and watch
that's
it, yeah.
the really cool thing.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah. So they've actually adopted it rather than trying
Yeah,
to fight it. Yeah.
that's right.
Worked really well.
Yeah.
How long have we been going for? What does your computer say?
Not sure.
You don't know?
40.
It hasn't worked.
My breaks in the breakfast show never go longer than 2 minutes.
2 minutes,
This is
yeah.
hang on. What's it say? 40 something, I think.
Right. And I'm assuming the red light on that camera up there is still flashing. I think we would have heard
48, I think.
48.
And the red light's still flashing.
Jesus,
so,
we're going
yeah.
well.
Yeah, no,
it took us an
we're
hour to get started,
smashing it,
but we're going well here.
Yeah, well, there was a little trip back to your place to get some.
came
You would have
back.
thought coming to a radio announcer's house,
Yeah.
he's going to have microphones.
Yes. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little mercy dash back to Aidan's place, but that's okay.
Where I had how many microphones?
Zero.
Zero. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Anyway,
Gave them
that's
away.
all right.
All right, let's talk about what you're doing now. So obviously you're doing 3MP,
Yep.
but that's not your only role for the station. You're doing content direction as well. Group. What's it called? Metro Group.
Yeah, Metro content director. So
Director.
as I was explaining to you before, when Ace Radio went Metro, we initially took on 3MP, and we now have Magic 1278 in Melbourne, 2UE Sydney, and 4BH in Brisbane as well. So it's
Right. But what does a group content director do?
well in charge of
Because I only
all
looked
of,
up the words. I didn't look up what it meant.
No, that's cool. That's cool. In charge of the on-air product on all of those radio stations.
Right.
So that spans from music to promotions to on-air stuff and rostering, dealing with
Right.
the sales department, and running regular meetings with the team and making sure it all goes off without a hitch. Yeah.
So 4 stations you're
Yes.
doing that for. So
Yep.
sending out ads to various stations and saying you've got to do this. You're playing that at 7:47. You're playing that ad there at 6:35.
Yeah, look, it's a really good team.
Yeah.
They're all members of the team have been around a long time, so they intrinsically know
Yes.
what to do. So
Okay.
I don't have to micromanage.
Right.
We do the music logs so that they don't have a choice in what we play. The formats are all specially designed. So when they go on air, they know that they've got a music log there and they slot in between the songs.
Yeah.
But they're all really, really great. They're
What are the
great
rules
people to work with.
on what music you're allowed to play and what you're not allowed to play? Like, as in, because I know there's rules on a certain amount of Australian content.
Yeah,
correct. Like,
yeah, correct.
Was it
So
5%?
we have
10%?
to play. We have to play 10%.
10% Australian content?
Which we manage, no worries at all.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. And then after that, I don't even know what the question is I'm trying to ask, but how is it sort of broken down into, okay, we're going to play the new Ariana Grande song,
Yep.
but we never play that at 8 o'clock in the morning because that's
Yep.
a top hit.
Yep.
We've got to put that's got to be at 5:30.
Yeah.
But then we also play it at 9:30 when people are in the car or whatever like that.
It's sort of.
Am I overthinking it? Or
I guess
is that how it works?
Different formats program differently, and our radio stations, we don't have a hit music station in Metro. We've all playing oldies. So 3MP, we play easy music, which is kind of like relaxing favourites from the 60s, 70s and 80s. Good. Magic is a similar demographic, but more up-tempo, a bit more rock.
Okay.
And then Sydney and Brisbane are different again. So we'll just make sure that, because we're not playing currents, but a station like Nova or Fox may have the latest Harry Styles song, which is, the biggest song of the moment, and they may play it at 7:15 in breakfast and then play it again at 10:30 in the morning and then again at 1:45 in the afternoon. So it'll get a certain amount of spins. But the next morning it won't play in the 7 o'clock hour because it played yesterday. So it'll play in the 8 o'clock hour. So
they do mix it a little bit.
It's mixing it up and making sure that the plays of the song are exposed to as many people as possible. Because particularly in breakfast radio, audience shifts so heavily. Like, someone, the bulk of you're not going to have someone tune in at 6 o'clock in the morning and stay with you until 9 o'clock in the morning. That's not the way breakfast works.
Right. Yeah.
You might only hear 20, 25 minutes of the breakfast show from when you're in the bathroom to when you get into the car, or maybe you only listen in the car. So you're only getting a brief snapshot of that program. So that's why we do that with the music, and that's why we recycle our content a lot as well. So last week when I did a race call, one of those fake race calls, it was the mature age handicap was my latest one. So I played that at 7:50 the first morning, and then played it again at 6:20 the following morning, and then 8:50 the following morning. But the chances of someone hearing that all three times very slim. Yes, because of the nature of breakfast radio and audience patterns.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And if they do, so be it.
And if they do, so be it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
they're tuning in to listen.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, we're getting towards the end. Run me through you're a Say It Now ambassador, which is a new thing that I have seen popping up. Yeah. Say It Now ambassador. Run me through what that means.
Yeah, well, James McLeod, who's in charge of Tobin Brothers Funerals, a friend of mine, he spoke to me once and said he does funerals, and every single funeral he does, he'll have at least one person say, "Oh, geez, I wish I had told them that while they were still here, but it's too late now, they're gone."
Yeah.
So he came up with the concept of Say It Now, and that is where you say it now to someone that you love while they're still here.
Okay.
So rather than wait to do it in the eulogy that they're not going to hear, you say it now while they're still with you. And he said, "Would you mind being an ambassador? Do you have someone?" And I said, "Well, my dad's 83, and I will do a little video with him." So that's what that was all about. They've got a number of ambassadors. That
is it an ongoing thing? Do you have
no, it was just a one-off.
Oh, just a once-off. Yeah, make a little video, because I did watch the video with your dad and blah blah blah. And okay, so they're just encouraging people to
absolutely
sit down with the
Say It Now.
Yeah.
And which I'm when he was explaining it, I said, "Mate, I'm on board. It's just such an important message."
Yeah.
And the amount of people that said to me, "That is just a really, really good thing to do," and I'm going to be saying it now to not only people that are elderly, but people that mean a lot to me in my life.
That's right,
because it's important.
Yeah. Funnily enough, when I first came up with the idea of doing this podcast, I needed to get it exactly right, because the guest that I'd really wanted to have on there was my grandma, who was nearing 100, and then I was probably a little bit too much of a perfectionist with getting everything right. And because her hearing's hard and her, using the microphone, like doing this would be just so foreign to her.
Yes.
I needed to find all these other ways to do it.
Yeah.
And in that time, me procrastinating, et cetera, she developed dementia and then was in a hospital, got to 100 just a bit after that. And then she died very late last year. So I never got to do the podcast with her as a 100-year-old woman, because her stories were just absolutely incredible. The things that she would, born in 1921, talks about helping get the kids to school on the horses and all this sort of like just incredible stories that I do wish
It would have been great to have had
and
that.
her
but-
mind until that last sort of 6 to 8 months was sharp as a tack. And those stories were so vivid to her.
Yeah.
But
It
too much
just didn't-
procrastinating.
Too much procrastinating. Got to get things done.
Do it. Yeah.
But you have all those stories. So
Yes. Yeah. That's right. It doesn't have to be.
And that's the main thing.
There'll be someone out
Yeah.
there. Right. Very good. Have you ever done a job that wasn't radio?
Before I got into radio, I was a checkout chick.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my at school.
Coles New World?
Yeah, it was Coles New
Was
World.
it?
Yeah, well, I know they just dropped the New World,
yeah.
so it had just
Oh,
become
yeah.
Coles. So
Right.
yeah,
But other than that, you've done radio ever since.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But grew up in Glen Waverley, and Coles Forest Hill was just around the corner. So
Yes.
yeah, checkout chick there, which was good. I loved that job.
Yeah. Well, you did dulcet tones on the clean up.
I used to go to
clean up
my
aisle
friends.
six and,
I used to con my front end boss to say, look, I know you normally do the announcement at the end of the night, but do you reckon I could do that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So good evening, customers, and welcome to Coles Forest Hill. The store's about to close. You've got 10 minutes to finalise your purchases and move towards the front checkouts. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for shopping at Coles Forest Hill, and you have yourself a terrific night. I don't think it came out quite like that. It was more squeaky.
Yes.
But, it gave me a little bit of microphone technique, I
Yes.
suppose. And that's the beauty of podcasts these days. And we say, a lot, like, how do I get a job on radio? Well, there's never been a better time
Yeah.
to get your flying hours up through doing podcasts. And I say
Yeah.
this all the time to people. Do a podcast.
Yeah.
Get used to talking into
Yeah.
a microphone. Get used to editing. Because once you've learnt that skill set,
Yeah.
it's really the same for radio.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the unit we're using right now is obviously...
That's what I use every morning. Yeah.
People can't see, but it's the Roadcaster designed for radio and podcasting, and you can just pick that up and move it into your outdoor area, and we're good to go.
Exactly, in front of the fire.
Very good, John. Unless I've missed something ultra important that you were hoping we'd get to,
Oh, mate, I'm just...
we didn't talk too much about your the Phantom horse races, but I assume a lot of people know about them. Go and look them up if you don't know what we're talking about with John's Phantom race calling. But
Fake race calls, yes.
Yeah.
They've certainly been of interest over the... started about 5 years ago, I think. Just picked up... used to do them on the radio show, and then decided to film one in a commentary box, and uploaded it on Facebook, and it went well.
went nuts, didn't it?
Yeah, a bit of fun.
Multi-million views. Koshy rang you.
Koshy. He didn't get me on for the last one, though. I think they might have had their day.
They've had their run. Yeah.
That's it. Had their run, like what you did there.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
was that a joke?
I don't want to flog a dead horse.
That's right. It's been a pleasure, Jon Vertigan. Thank you very
mate,
much.
Thank you for having me.
And,
As I said at the start, Aidan meets interesting people. I don't know if this is going to be very interesting, but thank you, mate. It's been an honour and good fun.
I'll put it in brackets.
Yeah, thank
Aidan
you.
meets people.
And keep up the good work with the podcast.
Will do.
It's awesome.
All right. Excellent.
Thanks, Aidan.
Thanks very much.